Well, welcome once again to New Knowledge, a presentation here at Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, brought to you in cooperation with our partners at the Town of Abingdon Economic Development Office and Washington County Chamber of Commerce. So we're excited to have with us today Chad Thompson, who is no stranger to this group. He's done a number of these presentations before. He's a good friend and partner of ours from his days back working at the for the Friends of Southwest Virginia. He was at the Town of Abingdon as well, but today is coming to us from Letterpress, where he is an account executive at Letterpress Communications. That's a good partner of ours as well, real experts on this area. And so Chad is going to talk to us today about the Google game plan, tracking what's working and finding new customers. And so we're happy to have with us Chad Thompson. Take it away.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. Excited to be back in Abingdon and teaching a workshop with you. It's been a little bit, but today we're going to be talking about Google and how you can utilize all kinds of different aspects of Google to help you with your small businesses, localities, and just anything else in between. We're going to cover a lot of different areas of how you can utilize all these different resources. And the best part is everything. I'm pretty positive everything in today's discussion is 100% for free. So all you have to do is dedicate a little bit of time and just a little bit of knowledge, and then you'll be able to execute some great things. So what we're going to be doing is tracking what's working and finding out about our different customers. So as Mark mentioned to everybody, my name is Chad Thompson. I work with Letterpress Communications, and when I first got hired on, I was an account executive, but we're recently going through some changes, and I'll actually be changing over to a project manager. Nonetheless, my job duties and responsibilities are still the same. And a lot of what I do at Letterpress is mostly specific to data analyzation as well as digital advertising aspects. So I work with broadcasters, I work with smart TV advertising, so things like Peacock getting people's ads on Disney and Hulu and Amazon. But my main concentration deals with Meta and Google. So a lot of advertising in the aspects of Facebook, Instagram, and things across Google. Also paying attention to things like analytics and different resources that Google and Facebook have as we move forward. So a lot of my job is learning the new things that comes into play, seeing what kind of changes they have, things that phase out, and ultimately just staying on top of those things to be an expert with Google and Meta. And that's kind of the point. And then here on the right side is kind of an example of our bookstore here in Abingdon. So you can see that we're located on the map. There's outside picture, inside picture of the business. We have links to our website, directions, basically all the information everybody's going to need to get in touch with us. So what we're looking at here in total is the Google Business Profile. Just for reference, Letterpress Communications, our profile is located here on the left. You can see all the information in there. One thing we don't include for us in particular is business hours, and that's because essentially we're available for the most part all the time, but we don't have a set amount of hours for our business, so that's one of the reasons you'll see that empty. But Google Business Profile, or GBP, that is your digital front door. Think of this, you know, Google's the number one search engine website on the planet, even though things like TikTok and other social media sites have become very searchable. People are still searching Google as the number one source. So typically, if you're a business and people are looking up certain terms, which we'll get into shortly, that can connect to your business, if you don't have one of these business profiles, which is free to create, people might not be able to find out about you. And when you do a Google search, especially when you're looking for a certain type of service, let's say you're looking for an auto mechanic or a plumber, what's going to show up is these Google business profiles. And that's often the first thing they see before they're going to visit your website, before they call you. And if they don't see it and they don't have that information, then they're not going to be able to get in touch with you. So the first key action or important aspect of this profile is it includes your business name, your address, and your phone number. And there's some businesses out there that maybe don't have a specific address. Like when I was practicing freelance photo and video work, I didn't have a specific address attached to my business other than my mailing address, but I didn't want people showing up to my house. So you can actually put in a region that you serve. So if you are a business that does tree cutting or landscaping and you don't have a physical location that you want people to go to, you can actually put in a small region for them to know where you service instead. And the key action number two is trust signals. So prioritize real photos of you and your employees and your business over stock imagery. Social proof, consistent reviews signal trust to the algorithm. So once you create one of these profiles, it's not like one of those rotisserie ovens from back in the day. You don't just set it and forget it. You actually are going to be engaging with this profile. So you're going to ask people to go and leave reviews, and not necessarily just five-star reviews. Reviews from all over the place are good because that shows authenticity. If you went to a business and saw they had 1,000 five-star reviews and nobody ever said anything negative, you might start to question those things. So when somebody leaves you a four-star review or maybe even a three-star, that's okay because that shows real experiences and people are going to be able to figure out, the legitimate complaints from the things that aren't. And then also, like we mentioned, the photos. These don't even have to be professional photos. I taught a class yesterday on photo and video for small businesses. And if you got a cell phone in your pocket, you've got a great camera that can take these photos to upload to Google. But the important things you want to show is if you do have a brick and mortar location, you want a really good outside image of that location, especially if you're located somewhere that maybe is a little bit harder to find. If you can show somebody a visual reference of what your business looks like, that's going to go miles. And it might even stop a couple questions coming through of where you located and you're having to uh, scrounge around to, get a hold of these people and make sure that they are finding your business. And then the other neat thing is there is a post feature on here. So if you're running specials, you've got things coming up, you've made a change or just something you want people to know, you can make posts on your Google business listing as well. That's a great place to keep people updated and informed with things. It's unfortunately another thing to add to your task list, but it doesn't take very long just to pop on there, update a post, and then move on about your business. So once we get our front door established and we have this presence online, and one thing I did fail to mention too is it helps you with your Google rankings when you have that listing on there because it's an asset owned by Google. Google likes that. And I will throw out a couple things before I move on to research that just kind of popped in my head. I take karate classes here in Abingdon, and my particular dojo is already listed on the Google business listing, but there are actually three or four schools within that single dojo. So sometimes when that happens, and it happened with my bookstore as well, because we are in a building with a shared space with a coffee shop, sometimes you have to go a little farther to prove that you are also a part of that same building. So what that entails is typically having to film a short video showing that you can unlock the doors, walking through the space, and you have to start out on the street and show a street view of the space and just be able to prove that you really are a part of it. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're in a shared location, there might be a couple extra steps, but Google does a fairly decent job of walking you through that. And it does take about 5 to 7 days to get that approval. So just something to keep in mind. But now let's talk about keyword research. So now that we have a face for customers to find, we have to figure out how customers are going to find us. And we do that through these keywords or keyword searches. So think about when you're looking for something, like let's say it's time for you to get a new haircut. You might type in things like hair salon near me, haircut, these various terms that you might be searching for to help you find that business that you need. So you need to learn how to speak your customer's language, and it's going to be different for all of us. Let's say, for example, you own a hotel or a vacation rental of some sort. You're going to be looking at the area that you're in. For example, if I were a visitor getting ready to travel to, say, Abingdon, Virginia, I might look at a Google search for hotels in Abingdon, vacation stays in Abingdon, um, vacation rentals in Washington County. These are all just a combination of possible keyword search terms that your customers are looking for that you want to make sure that your business is showing up for. So the insight here is you sell financial planning. So they might research how to retire at 55. This is just a little example here. So the seed concept, if you are a financial planner and somebody is looking to retire at 55, you start with a simple term, then you use the keyword planner tool in Google, which is again something that's free, to find questions people are actually asking already. Now, here's a little trick you can do too. If you just simply go to Google and type in things like how to retire, that Google search is actually going to start auto-filling a bunch of examples of things that real people are actually searching for. So we'll go back to the vacation rental. If you own an Airbnb, you might type in Airbnb's Abingdon, Virginia, and then look at the auto completes that it's offering those suggestions to you. And those could be possible keywords you want to start ranking for. Um, so if we understand that search intent of people that are just browsing versus learning versus the transactional side of things, when people are actually ready to buy or engage with your business, that's when you start finding that sweet spot of high volume, low volume competition, which is ultimately going to be your best opportunity. So when you use the Google keyword research tool or any other keyword tool that's out there, there's third-party softwares that have them. You get so many searches per day or so many per week to look these up. And it's not something you necessarily have to do every day. This would be something you do upon your initial research. You want to look for that high volume. So if people are searching at least 1,000 times a month for this word, or at least 100 times for this word, it depends on what your niche is and how big of an audience you're actually reaching for. But it's going to tell you how many times people are searching, but it's also going to tell you what the competition rate for that word is. So what you're looking for is high volume, low competition. And then when you can find those words that align with your business and start implementing that in your websites, on your social media posts, on your Google business profile, and you can implant those keywords throughout your marketing in digital trails online. That's ultimately what's going to have Google saying, okay, these people are the ones that need to start showing up the most because they're hitting everything that their customers are looking for. They're legit. They have all these sources. And that's ultimately why you see some businesses ranking higher on certain pages, unless of course they have the paid promotion on there, which is a whole nother ball game. So here's an example of what that would look like. So I actually did go to Google and I typed in the retire at 55. So what you'll notice is there is, of course, going to be some paid promotions. So the very first thing that pops up here is a sponsored result. I don't know about you, but typically me, as somebody that searches on Google, I tend to skip the sponsored result and go straight for the first organic result. Um, but you also see some other little tidbits over here. But what this section is the new kind of AI at a glance. So what this section is doing is twofold. Google has introduced something called the zero-click search, which back in the day, before zero-click search was introduced within the past year or so, the goal was to have websites rank based on keywords and information and authority and all these different things. But Google is trying to make it easier than ever for people that are searching for things to get straight to those things. So, one of the easiest ways to get information without actually having to go to the source is for them to bring the source to you. So, what this AI at a glance typically does, you'll see that it has these little link icons, and that's basically them citing their source. But it's just pulling information from other websites and kind of collectively putting all that together so that you're getting kind of that initial answer that you were looking for. So this is something to think about if you're a small business and you're looking for one of those titles. What is coming up in this AI section here? How can you use that information to relay it back to the messaging that you're putting out on your website, on social media, and so on? Because there's a lot of strong keywords in here. So the retire at 55, um, healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, IRS, all these different things are keywords you should be using if you're that financial planner that's trying to target these people. Like this is basically giving you all the information. So it doesn't matter what your business is, go do a simple search like this, and it'll start to show you all the very things that you're actually looking for. Now let's talk about Google Analytics. This is one of the reasons that I think having a website is so important. There's many reasons. Another being social media is not something that's guaranteed. I mean, think about all the social media platforms that we had back in the day. For those of you that maybe remember MySpace or Vine or some of the others that just don't exist anymore, that could realistically happen to any site that's out there for any reason. But at least when you have a website, that's not something that's just going to be taken away from you. So that's one reason to have it. Number two is Google loves a good website that's been around for a while, has a lot of links, a lot of strong, real information written by humans. Um, staying away from like the AI written content, the AI generated stuff. Google wants the real stuff. Even though they push their own AI, they still want humans to create the other content. But if you have a website, then you get access to Google Analytics. And this is a very, very powerful resource to find out who your customers are, where they're coming from. It's kind of scary the information that you can find just from Google Analytics, let alone some of the other advertising opportunities that are out there. So in Google Analytics, the insight is that GA4, which is Google Analytics 4, tells you what people do after they click. And the big three metrics that we're looking for is the traffic sources. So where are our customers coming from? Are they coming from social media? Are they coming from emails? Are they searching? Or is this from some of our paid advertising? And once we get into the kind of more of the hands-on part here in a minute, I'll show you how I used a lot of this GA4 information when I worked in tourism to learn more about our visitors that were coming to our communities. Engagement. Are they actually reading your content or are they bouncing, which is basically like they go to the page, they instantly see what they need, and they're gone. In some cases, that's okay because if they were just going to your page to find a phone number or an address or something simple like that, in a roundabout way, it's okay that they're leaving. That's kind of expected. But what are some things you could do to keep them there? Maybe you could write some blog posts that give them some information about uh, your professional service area. Maybe you have forms on your website that they have to take some time to fill out that causes them to stay on your website a little longer. Basically, high bounce rates or people clicking on your website and leaving quickly is not the greatest trigger to Google. So you want to try to keep people on your website a little bit longer. And by longer, I mean, it's not like social media where they want you to stay scrolling for hours on a website. This could be something as small as 30 seconds to up to 5 minutes. Basically, we just don't want to see somebody going to a page for 1 to 2 seconds and then instantly leaving. Um, that can hurt with a lot of things like rank and where you show up on Google. So it's just one of those things you don't necessarily want to do. So conversion events. So defining wins for you. And for different businesses, that looks like different things. For our bookstore, a phone call would not be a win because we don't have a phone number. But filling out a form or sending us an email, those are all things we would consider wins. So think about what those conversion events are that is important to your particular business. Is it somebody scheduling to come to your salon? Is it somebody to schedule a free consultation to something? Think about what those are and how you can track that. Okay, so we're going to hop into a little live demo. So I'm going to switch screens here for a second. And we'll just take a quick look at Google Analytics here. So this is what we call a sandbox account. So this is analytics for a Google resource. but it's going to give us a great idea of just some of the things that you can do with your website. So this is kind of what your home dashboard looks like. So it's just tracking basic things like active users, key events, and sessions. Now keep in mind these numbers are pretty big because this is a Google resource. So your numbers might be a lot smaller. This might be not even 100 people here, but that's okay because it's going to be different for everybody. But what we want to do is jump into the report section of Google Analytics. And I just want to show you a few things that I used Google Analytics for, and we'll just talk about the tourism setting because it's relative to a small business or anybody else as well. So some of the things that I like to look at was acquisition. Where or am I acquiring these visitors from? Because one of the things that we do in the or did in the tourism industry was we spent a lot of money advertising in print publications, digital email newsletters, on other websites. So one way we wanted to see if we were getting return on our investment was to see if our new users were coming from any of those sources. We were looking at how many people were directly typing in our website, how many people were finding us just from a simple Google or Bing search, how many people were coming from our paid searches. Was our advertising firm doing a good enough job at making sure that we were getting enough people coming from the Google paid search or the social searches? You could also track your organic social. So, are you posting on your social media accounts and those posts are encouraging people to go to your website? Are they actually working? And what you can read from that is to see what's working well and just keep it up. But things that aren't working so well, maybe you could find ways to improve on that. I will say that from what I've experienced from most people's analytics, direct and organic search are typically the two highest, unless you just have crazy big budgets to spend in search for Google searches or social. Typically, this is about how it sets up, though. But where it gets even more neat is you can go down into your user attributes, and then you can start looking at an overview of who the people are that are coming to your website. So most likely all of us, our users are primarily going to be the United States, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that in just a second. But we can break this up by city. And this was one thing that I always loved doing, especially in the tourism department, is for Abingdon, the bulk of people are coming within a 5 hour circumference of Abingdon. So if you just draw a big old 5 hour long circle around the town, that's where the bulk of people are coming from. But we had it down to the city, but even more than that, there was other softwares available out there. We could basically get down to the neighborhood of where people were coming from. So it was very targeted when we were doing digital advertising. And that's kind of what you want to do as a business owner as well. It's just your circle might be a lot smaller. Maybe you're only a half an hour circumference of the town that you're living in or working in. But what's neat here is we can break down users by gender, obviously their location. We can also break them down by their interests. We can break them down by behaviors. How much money do they spend? You can even find that information about the people for your particular business. You can know exactly what income levels people are, if they have education or not, all the different things that are relevant to the targeting that you need to do. And then you can take that information and see, what your clients kind of are here. And then you can take that and go research things on Google. You could use Google Gemini. You could use ChatGPT. This is one of the areas where I do think that some AI works pretty well. Is I could just take a screenshot of this section here, if this were my business. I could upload that into Google Gemini and say, hey, based on this information, what are some things you can tell me about this particular core audience? And then once you give me that information, can you tell me what keywords that I need to make sure that I'm targeting on my website or social media accounts so that I get more of these people coming to my website? And that could be a great place for you to start if you're not as familiar with how to research some of those things on your own. You can break things down by age and see kind of what age groups are most interested in. And a lot of these things are just going to probably align up with other areas of data collection or marketing that you're doing. You can break it down even farther and you can go into different demographic details. You can see graphs and charts. You can get as in-depth or basic with this as you want to. For me, though, with Google Analytics, I think the biggest areas of interest and that are most useful is the user attributes, doing just an overview, finding out the cities, the age, the gender, and income levels. I think those are kind of the most important ones for the majority of work that I do. But also the acquisition. How are we getting these people to our channels so we know areas that we need to improve or areas that, we can kind of change up on. But there's
Excuse me,
all,
Chad.
yes,
So one of the Scott said, just a thought, Virginia law requires websites to be transparent about collecting visitor information. When a website uses Google Analytics, which automatically collects data, a privacy notice is required to explain what information is collected and how it is used.
correct. Yeah. So just having a simple privacy notice located on your website will take care of all that. And you can work on that. Like, so for example, if you're setting up a website with somebody like an agency, like that's one thing that Letterpress will help and assist with is is creating a website. If you want to go independently through something like Squarespace or WordPress, which is typically the routes I do for my personal things or my own businesses, at that point you could reach out with specialized attorneys to help you with some of that messaging, just to make sure that you're following the proper guidelines and such. But yeah, a lot of these different areas here, I mean, they're going to pull all kinds of information for you. So really anything that you need in particular, you can actually go up in the top and you can start searching for these things. Um, it's all here. And there's a lot of great resources on YouTube. You can still sign up for websites like Skillshare and take more in-depth training. But Google actually has its own really, really good skill shop where you can learn in-depth trainings about analytics, advertising, and all that. And they're all completely for free. And once you get through them, if you pass the testing, you can actually become certified in these things. Not that that's going to be a huge need for a lot of us, but just going in and taking the trainings and doing some of the practice tests, I think are great resources, especially if you're trying to learn more about these things. So let's switch back over here. So we'll try to take on a little bit of an activity. So think about a question that a customer asked you this week or last week, sometime here recently, and then do a quick search in Google just to see if any of your competitors come up. If you want to take a minute or two to do that now, you can, and I'll kind of keep going through the things. If not, just write this down and do it later. And this is a great way to kind of monitor your competition, see who's showing up and what they're showing up for. So essentially, your customers are basically doing your research for you, because when they say these phrases or they ask these questions, I mean, those are real things that real people that are interested in your line of business are looking for. They're looking for that information. So if your competitor's showing up more than you, that's an area that you can try to start improving on. Now let's talk about the 30-day plan. How can we take all this that we've been talking about today and put this into an action? Well, we can start by creating a little bit of homework. But there's not going to be a teacher at the end to collect it. So it's all going to be on you to do this for yourself. But the first thing is the foundation. So take about an hour and audit and optimize your Google business profile. I can tell you right now, and I've been putting this off for months, that our bookstore, we need a better outside image of the building that we're in. And so I already know that's one area that I can improve, but just go through your Google business profile. If you have one, if you haven't responded to reviews, make sure you respond to those. Even if some of them were just a little bit older, just to kind of increase that activity and have more going on with your page. Look to see if there's any old posts that you might have put on there that you don't really need anymore. Make sure your hours are up to date. You can go ahead and add in future holiday hours and different things like that. But spend about an hour doing that. Maybe you don't need a whole hour, maybe you need more, but that's a great place to start. And then after you've accomplished that, identify 5 high intent keywords for your content. So think about the five biggest things that people are going to be searching for that can ultimately drive your customers back to your website or your social media pages. Also, try to think about these in terms of researching them and seeing how often your competitors show up with those as well, if you have competitors. And the final one here is a habit of spending about 15 minutes or so a week just checking in with your GA4 traffic, just looking for trends like how many people are visiting your website, what pages are they going to, how long are they spending on their website, because this can tell you a lot of information about how well your site is built. So, like our bookstore, for example, one of the busiest pages is everybody's, it's going to be the home page most of the time. But for us, also, it's the events page and then the pages where we have forms set up so that local authors can sign up for either events or being wholesaled in the store. And then if I start to notice that other pages just aren't really hitting things well, they're decreasing my performance, I can go in and actually start to fix those pages or just start to remove them altogether. And if, if people just aren't interacting, does this page really even serve a purpose? So those are things that you can figure out just by looking at your analytics. All right, and I wanted to save a little bit of time for questions because I know Google can be a very difficult thing to navigate. I'll go ahead and pull up this slide just for a little bit so you have my contact information as you're thinking about some things to ask. Um, but Google can be challenging. It can be difficult. The user interface of a lot of their backends are not the most friendly things. Even as somebody that uses this stuff every single day, there's a lot of times I can't quite figure out why they have things structured and organized the way they do. Um, so if there's anything relevant or specific you want to know to your business or any of the things we talked about, I'm happy to go a little bit more in depth on those.
Chad, when your website collects has forms on it, and collects data, what, how do you get that data?
So the forms that I'm talking about, like my website has two forms on it. There's one for local author wholesale, and there's one for um, what is the other local author events. So basically it just guides them through. It asks what their name is, their email address, and then there's basically like a little consent basically saying that you agree to give it to me. The only thing that is done with that data that we collect is for us to use for that specific purpose. That data doesn't go to data companies, data collectors, like it's literally just it goes to like an inbox for us in our email. So there's different. Oh yeah, I will definitely link you to the Google training before we end the call today. Um, so I'm not actually collecting data per se from my forms that is going to go to other places and things of that sense. So it kind of depends on the business and what the intent is. But yes, 100% if you are collecting data, especially data that you're planning to sell, that you definitely want to make sure that's out there. So there's different ways that you can collect it. An email list, yeah, that's a great form. We have an email list form, and we basically just state on there the purpose. So when people sign up, they know that they're signing up just to receive emails specific to upcoming events and happenings within that we have going on. Another way that we collect data, not necessarily digitally, but when we do have our public events, um, when we have participating events like poetry nights, people sign up to read their poetry. We have an email collection box that we're adding to our stuff there that we can later manually put into our email software. So we just basically write up on there that, hey, if you want to sign up, this is totally optional. Here's what it'll be used for. So but yeah, email list is definitely, Janice, a great example. I'm going to quickly go grab that Google Shop link. Uh, I will say that these courses, um, they can really turn your brain into soup. If you spend a lot of time on them, and I have, I've spent a ton of time in here, but they are very valuable. And you can get in there and study them at your own pace. You don't actually have to have a time limit to go through these courses, but you can look up Google Ads, you can look up Google Analytics. There's a whole section on the Google My Business. So really, just whatever your needs are, you can click that link. It's skillshop.withgoogle.com, and it's very information heavy. I will say that a few of the courses I've taken are slightly out of date, and there's some links in there that will send you to some sunset software that Google no longer uses, which is unfortunate because some of it was really neat. So just keep in mind there is a little bit of outdated information, but they have tons of great resources.
I will say I recommend Chad and Letterpress to help any of the participants that are in this new knowledge because Chad is excellent, I know, on getting information and tracking information. So for people that have small businesses and try to um, focus on selling or their own products or services, whatever, might not have time to do that kind of work themselves, highly recommend Chad and the Letterpress team.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. We do have a great team with a lot of very special interests. Um, we come from all kinds of different backgrounds. My main background being from tourism, but we have people on the team that have come from higher education, and a plethora of other places, community and economic development authorities. So we definitely have, and I guess a handful of us, probably half the team, own some type of small business of the sort. So we try to make sure that everybody on the team has focus areas here so that we always have like an expert in some type of field. Um, Nonprofits is also a big one. We have a lot of people on the team that have worked in nonprofits. I know Mark mentioned I worked for Friends of Southwest Virginia for a few years. So across the board, we've got a lot of great experts. I'm very lucky to be working with a great team.
That's great. I agree 100% with Gene. Our folks at Letterpress are great at what they do. They're good partners, and it helps Chad co-owning his own business, that he knows what small businesses out here are looking for and what they need. And I always learn something every time I hear from Chad. So you can visit him at the bookseller over on Court Street in Abingdon. Any other questions? Chad, when you set up analytics in a website, it's asking if you want to enable Google Analytics debug mode.
That is actually a great question. That would be something I'd have to look a little bit more into. I'm not sure what website um, program you use to build yours. I'm most familiar with WordPress. So with WordPress, we have like these plugins, and it's basically I'm trying to think. So you would install the plugin, and then you are linking that plugin back to your website, basically showing that you own it. And then eventually it's going to connect sorry, it's connecting your website to the analytics. So I've not seen mine go into a debug mode that I'm aware of.
And getting another question in
Yeah.
chat there.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
The posts, let me see here. Hosted.
Posts on your Google profile and examples of good posts.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll answer that one and then I'll go back to yours, Janice, while I'm collecting those thoughts. So, different posts that you could put on your profile. It kind of depends on what type of business or organization that you have, but upcoming events would be a great thing to put out there. I know, like us at the bookstore, we tend to only do like our bigger events on that. So things that we really want to bring out a big crowd, like our upcoming 3-year birthday. Obviously, that would be a post that we would put out. If you've got any special closures here right now, because the way that the weather's happening, you could go on there and put a post saying, we will be closed today due to inclement weather. You could put various milestones or just information that you want to share with people. It works very similar to that of a social media post. I personally don't use it as frequently. If you were getting ready to run some special deals and discounts for a while for something, maybe there's an open enrollment for something you have coming up. Those I think would all be great examples. Um, and I typically don't leave a lot of the posts on there. So after an event is passed, I typically will put a task in my task manager to go back and remove things if it just don't feel relevant anymore. Because sometimes I've noticed people might see a post that happened a year ago, and this could be on Facebook too. In fact, this happened to me a lot in the tourism office. People would find events that had already passed from like a year prior, and they would call and have questions or even sometimes show up to things because they didn't see the date. They didn't look at the date. They just saw, 2025. In fact, something happened in 2024. So I try to be mindful of things like that and make sure that I don't keep special promotions or things on there after it's happened. And then Janice, I'll go back to yours. And it looks like if you're running through, oh, you're very welcome, Mary. Uh, I would say that if you're running through a particular company, like the property management, sometimes it is best to reach out to them if they're like niche specific, just because they might have a certain way that they have to do things. A lot of the popular website builders like Squarespace and Wix, most of them have pretty thorough documentation of how to set it up or have like an app that you would install that will walk you through. Again, like my WordPress, it's as simple as installing the app, putting in my website address, and then proving to Google that I own that website and that GA4 property so that I can connect the two. And most of the time, once you get it set up once, you're good to go. You don't normally have to go back and fix anything later unless just something breaks.
Other questions you want to take advantage of while we have Chad's expertise here?
And if you can't think of anything today or in this present moment, you can definitely go back to my email. I'll drop that in the chat as well. Feel free to send us an email. If I can't answer the question, I'm sure somebody on the team would have a good uh, case here. Sorry, I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. Doesn't exactly work that well.
Chad at letterpresscommunications.com. All right, Chad, that's all. As always, it's a very helpful information. We appreciate you doing that and your partners at Letterpress. And if you liked what you heard today, we're going to hear more from Letterpress next month at our new knowledge when we hear about from chaos to clarity, creating a 90-day marketing plan that works. That will be on Wednesday, March 4th at noon as well. So please sign up for that. Again, thanks to our partners at Letterpress, and hope everybody has a good day. If we can help you here at Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, also please contact us. Thank you, and everybody have a good day.